Becky Mitchell. Welcome to the Museum Roadshow. I'm the director here at the Becker County Museum. And today I have joining me Jen Johnson, our research library director, and Sally Tuck Olson. Welcome, ladies. We're going to talk a little bit about country schoolhouses today. And Jen, you've recently have wrapped up a project of compiling a lot of information about the country schoolhouses. Oftentimes they're referred to as one-room schoolhouses, but I'll let you talk a little bit about gathering that information and maybe the misconception behind that labeling of one room.
So going into this project, I was new at Becker County and really didn't know much. So the first thing I had to do was really learn about country schools in general. And when I did that, of course, we had the files at the research library, but one of the biggest ways I did that was just by talking to people who came in, and especially when I started talking to people about the one-room schools when they started with the oral histories. And one of the biggest things I learned pretty quickly was that some of the schools had 2 separate rooms and some actually had up to 4. And this happened because there came to be so many students in the schools and they couldn't all fit them in one room, and it just came to be too much for the teachers, and education wasn't becoming what it was that way. It was kind of poor education, and they wanted to make the education as great as they could for the students, so they decided to split classes.
So they expanded pretty quickly in our county past the one-room labeling of the one-room schoolhouse into multiple rooms. You talked with a lot of people in the community that went to one-room schoolhouses or maybe even taught at a one-room schoolhouse. Was there a common thread of information that you received, or was everybody's stories a little bit unique?
The stories, the basis was pretty common. You know, they all had recess, they had the same kind of classes. The rules were pretty much the same, but every schoolhouse and kind of the games they'd play, they'd tweak them themselves. So they were unique. Like for baseball example, some would call it bat and ball, and others would call it, baseball. Some actually called it catch because they didn't have a bat, so they were able just to throw it, but it was the same concept.
I think one of the kind of interesting tidbits that I picked up, so we've compiled all this information here at the museum and have put it in a book that will be available in July of 2018. The release will be during the Becker County Fair at the one-room schoolhouse, which is kind of fun. But one of the little more humorous tidbits about that I read was that at some point somebody had brought a basketball hoop in, but the kids didn't know what it was, so they didn't play with it. Tell a little bit about that story.
So one of the schools, one of the guys I talked to said that somebody had came and just this person would come. They didn't have a janitor or anything, so it was just somebody helping out from the community, came and put up what he called was a circle with a net, I think is kind of how he described it. And none of the country kids had ever seen that kind of device before. So the teacher came and, she brought the kickball and showed them you tried to get it in the hoop, but they didn't understand the concept, so they didn't touch it. And then they happened to go to the home school when they got into junior high, and of course the gymnasium had the basketball and all that stuff, so that's how they learned. So they often said they were sheltered.
I'm sure that there was a feeling of being sheltered a little bit out in the country back in the day, as you say. So, Sally, you went to you have lots of kind of interesting relationships with the whole country school theme. Went to a country school. Talk a little bit about that. How old were you, and what school did you go to?
Well, I started in first grade at District 80, which is located on South Melissa Drive. And my great-grandparents, John and Wilhelmina Olson, who had come from Sweden, they had purchased a farm in 1897. They, with their young daughter Minnie, became around 5 years old. They started worrying, where's Minnie going to go to school? So they, for $1, gave to Lakeview Township the land to build District 80. And I have actually a picture of that family, John and Wilhelmina, and their little Minnie is the baby there, the young child. But anyway, so they started, the building was finished in 1901, and all my sisters and I, Ellen and Sue and I, my father and his siblings all went to that school, and I only went a few years because after a while my folks took jobs in the winter down in Ohio, so I just went a few years. But my sisters went several years to District 80, and they both said that they had some of the best education that they ever had in elementary. The main teacher who we remember so fondly was Viola Bray, and if you speak with anyone who had attended District 80, she was just a terrific teacher. And of course we all learned from each other in a one-room schoolhouse.
Sure. What grade levels was it? Kindergarten through 6th or kindergarten through 8th?
It was 1st grade through 8th grade.
Okay. So quite an age range to be able to learn from, and I imagine that the younger kids maybe somewhat learned from the older kids.
Definitely.
So
definitely.
Where is that schoolhouse today? Does it still exist?
It does. It's pitiful. It's very ramshackle, but it does still stand, and it is on South Melissa Drive, just about 3 or 4 blocks from where Highway 17 and South Melissa Drive intersect as you're going west on South Melissa Drive.
Do you remember what year it closed, what year it stopped?
I believe it was 1961, I think, is when the kids then all went to Rossman.
So many of these schoolhouses were still operating well into a time frame that much of society remembers, our
Yes.
retired folks, because many of them attended those schools. And then, I'm sorry, maybe you already said this, but did you then go to school in Ohio, or did you go to the larger school here in Detroit Lakes, or what happened?
I went to school in Ohio. I would start at District 80. I'd go down to Ohio, then come back and finish that year at District 80 until I was about 4th grade. And then both school districts sort of frowned on that. So then I would end up going by myself on a train to Ohio in the fall before my folks finished up with the resort.
Okay.
And stay with friends and family until my folks came in October.
Interesting, different times. What were some of your favorite memories of the one-room schoolhouse? Was it games or some of the events? I know that Christmas programs were a very big deal, or the spring picnics. What were some of your favorite memories?
Well, the Christmas program was so cute. They would, as described in Jen's book, they'd put a sheet up and make a little stage, and they'd have all these cute little things. How the teacher managed to do all this work is just remarkable to me. But they doll it up and make beautiful decorations. And then the other, of course, fun thing was the games. Dodgeball, Evie Ivy over the schoolhouse.
Which is also anti-Iover, I think, right?
Lots of fun times with the kids. And the teacher would play too.
Oh, okay. The teacher went out and played as well. And Jen, so similar in all of the schoolhouses, they all had their various Christmas programs, spring programs, and what have you, correct?
Yes, they did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're about ready to wrap up here. Is there any other significant memories that either of you would like to share with our viewers?
I think that the wonderful thing is that now I'm finding that people who went to District 80, and I'm sure it's true with other schools, now want to still get together.
Interesting. So you've maintained those relationships
Yes.
over the years. So, Jen, we have information, as much information as we could find on every country schoolhouse that was in Becker County, correct?
Yes.
So we encourage people to stop in the museum and check out that book come July, or of course purchase one copy or multiple copies for Christmas presents, if you will. And tell it, just as we're closing, what will you be doing at the fair?
I will be teaching about hourly, and basically I'm going to talk about what it would be like to be in a one-room schoolhouse.
So all you viewers will have the opportunity to actually attend school, if you so choose, during the Becker County Fair in July of 2018. We're going to wrap it up for today, but thank you so much for joining us on the Museum Roadshow, and we look forward to talking to you again.